2007 Chevy Silverado has a door lock issue. You can see it's not locking or unlocking from the passenger door. Well, that could be a major electrical problem. It could be as simple as a switch, an open, a short, an actuator, who knows? But today on Tech Garage, we're going to teach you all about strategy-based diagnostics. Well, it's a good day for an electrical problem.
It's never a good day for an electrical problem. Holy cow.
Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Our Silverado, well, lock, unlock, nothing from the passenger door, Dave. I got absolutely nothing going on.
All right, let me see here.
Wonderful.
Look at that.
How about 15 minutes earlier?
I enjoyed watching you struggle, sir.
Yeah, exactly. Well, here's the deal. You know, we did that on purpose because we want to teach you all about strategy-based diagnostics. What does that mean? Well, here's a pretty good illustration. Dave, you take tires off all the time. You do a phenomenal job, but I don't want you to take your lug nuts and just chuck them over your shoulder.
I learned in a Christmas story that is a bad idea. You want to take those, and I put them on the lift. On all four corners, you develop a system. That way you know right where they are, and it sounds like a little thing, but it's a big thing because time is money, especially when you're a professional. That's going to take all that extra time to figure out where you put the lug nuts this time.
And think about that. Every aspect of the repair, especially when it comes to electrical, if you had a strategy or a diagnostic plan to follow, it's going to make the job easier in the long run. I mean, it applies to real life. And Dave, you do that all the time.
Oh, yeah. I'm a million-mile traveler through my television career. And this sounds kind of silly, but there's a system. Every time I get to a hotel room, I put the keys, the wallet, the key card, all my work stuff in the same place, so I'm never late because I always know where that stuff is. And it's always more efficient to operate, and yeah. I never leave anything behind.
Shocker. You do that?
Hard to believe.
OCD guy? Hey. Anyway, when it comes to a car, you want to kind of check the good components to find the bad ones. Well, what does that mean? Here's a great example for you. On our Silverado here, it doesn't lock or unlock from this door, but we went ahead and did it on the driver's side, and when we hit the driver's side, it locked and unlocked. That's a good thing. That's verifying the customer's concern. You can do it over there. Make sure you do it over here. Another thing you can do, well, that tells us a couple things before even that. That's step number one. Dave, what does that tell us?
That tells us the problem is not with the entire system. It isolates it over here to this door, to the passenger side door.
Absolutely. Now we're dealing with, we know we got a good actuator inside. We got the door lock mechanism out there. Everything seems to be working well, but we're down to the switch, but we're not positive on the switch. So here's a couple other options. Maybe you don't have a fancy scan tool like you have, but just get the key fob. If you have a key fob and it's working, you can do it here as well. So if I hit it, it's unlocking and unlocking. Now I know it's going to either a radio frequency module, security module, body control module, engine control module, to a door module, bam, and unlocking. But there's a lot of communication going on there, Dave. And of course, you walked in and made me look pretty bad here.
Scan tool, kaboom, there you go.
There you go. So fancy scan tool, door locks, solenoids, all kinds of stuff. It's telling you a lot that's going on, but it's not locking and unlocking. So what's the next step?
Well, the next step is to grab a schematic
to
see what's going on inside there to make sure we know where the problem is.
Now here at Tech Garage, we're big advocates about getting a schematic and knowing what's going on, but it's pretty simple if you look at it. And you start down there with the door lock switch. That's the one we're pushing. And you can see there's two data communication lines going up to a body control module. It goes up to the body control module, and then it goes up to all the fancy relays and all the fancy actuators and everything else. So here's the deal, Dave, by looking at this, everything from the body control module up is in good shape. So our problem lies from that body control module down to the switch. We can actually isolate that as well, make sure there's no communication. So if you watch that scan tool right there, we're actually on the scan sheet of it. Here we go. Lock, unlock, lock, unlock. Are you getting any inputs?
Nothing. Yeah, so we know it is the switch right there.
No inputs in sight. So what we have to do is either get in there and start checking the wire harness from here down to the actual driver's door module, the body control module, whatever it's communicating with, but odds are it's probably a switch.
And let's go with the odds there. And it just so happens RockAuto.com sells a switch just like that, and we have one right here in Tech Garage.
You guys want to make sure you stick around because we got the coolest demo on the planet, Dave. We got a door all tore apart so you can see inside, outside, window regulators, door locks, solenoids, how it all works. You don't want to miss that. We'll be back with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com.
Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com is brought to you by
Custom Auto Sound, the originator of classic car OEM fit radios since 1977. BrothersTrucks.com, your #1 source for 1947 to 87 Chevy and GMC truck restoration. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Well, welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Now, only on Tech Garage are you going to get the coolest demo on the planet, a complete cutaway of a door. Well, what's going on inside a door? Well, before we look at that, remember, when taking your door panel off, use these special tools. We got these at rockauto.com. You got little clips, pins, all different stuff going on inside of there. Just take your time. There's no really service manual for that. Take your time, be patient. Now, what you waited for? Check this out. I can run this window up and down. Here's the window motor right there. And if you look at the back side, man, look at that regulator unit. Everything's pulling up and down inside of that door. Door locks, just as easy. Here's the mechanism. We actually put it on the outside of the door so you can see it. Lock, unlock, right there. Got your child safeties here, bypass everything, stops it, or then we open it and you lock and unlock. Now, in order to check voltage, it's pretty simple. If you were down in your door, just pull the door panel off, switch your meter over here to DC volts. They're bi-directional motors. What does that mean? Well, you usually have 12 and a -12. One lock one way and unlock the other way. So if I come over here and I unplug this door lock mechanism right here, you guys, I'm gonna go in the 2 wires. They're bi-directional. One's lock and one's unlock. You don't want these to touch. You want to keep them separated. So what I'm going to do is hold it right there. Now, if I come over and I lock, you can see there's 12 volts. Now, if I go the other way, it's a -12 volts. Positive 12 volts, -12 volts. So it's actually shifting that solenoid to the left, to the right, lock and unlock. That's what works the door. Window motors, just as easy. Come down to your window motor. For example, you think it's not working back and forth and your switch is working good. You come down here. You actually go across those 2 terminals. When I go across those 2 terminals, once again, not allowing them to touch, that's going from positive to ground. That would be a short. You want to keep it that way. Now I come up this way, you got a 12 volts. You go down, you got a -12 volts. Positive 12 volts, -12 volts. Same thing. It's bi-directional motor. Running that window up and running that window down. Man, that's a great look of how a door lock and windows work. Dave, you got everything under control over there?
Well, John, we've got a handle on this situation over here. Here's the handle itself. Now, Josh, you removed this. First, you took off the plastic cover, and that exposed where the bolts are, a couple of 10mm bolts. And I noticed you backed them out slowly. You know, from the top to the bottom, went back and forth. That was to keep it all together, to make sure the bolts didn't come out.
Doesn't want to fall on the ground, right?
Yeah, keep track of those like we talked about lug nuts earlier. Very good. So that's how we got to this point, and what happens now?
Well, now that you have the handle off, that gives us access to this little panel right here that holds our door lock button, so we can just pop this in here. Now the temptation is to go get you a little flathead pocket screwdriver, or maybe a little butter knife to pry these up, but you don't want to gouge your trim. So
you've got to live with whatever you do to your trim for the rest of eternity, and so you're going to be looking at that gouge you made in it. You got to use the right tool so you don't live with a lifelong heartache there.
Yep. Lucky for us, this was not too bad. Just a couple clips on this side and this side. It just pops loose. So I'm going to go ahead and take this clip out.
All right,
you take your door lock button, plug it in there, and we'll see if we can toggle it back and forth, see if that messes with our actuators over here.
Give it a shot.
Nice.
Look at that. It was the switch.
That's it.
There we go. Just as simple as that. And when we come back, John's going to talk about steering in this week's Garage Ed. You do not want to miss that little lesson from the professor. We'll be right back with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com, so do not go anywhere.
Well, welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. It's hard to believe we made it to the Garage Ed segment already, and we're going to talk about power steering pumps, man. Everything you need to know, and also on the car, Dave's going to show us everything you need to know to keep that system in tip-top shape. Let's understand what a power steering pump actually does. Well, it produces pressure. It's the heart of the system. You can see up there with our actual rack and pinion system, it's going through the spool valve, and it's pushing on that rack either right or left. Bottom one down there, you can actually see it in our gearbox. Our gearbox is pushing down there on that actual spool valve to the right or left, moving it as it goes. That ball nut's gonna move, it's gonna help you turn. Now, when it comes to pumps, all different types of pumps. You can see at the top there, it's a roller type pump. In the middle is a vane type pump. We actually have one blown apart here on the table, and a slipper type pump. Now what's going on with these? Basically the pump's just actually putting the fluid in on the low pressure side. It's coming in, and these vanes, rollers, or slippers are actually pressurizing in it to a tighter chamber, and then it's allowed to exit out of the back of the pump. I can show it to you right here in action. This is pretty cool. So if you look at the pump right here, you can actually see this is a vane type pump. So I'm gonna tip it up a hair and I'm gonna spin it. And what happens, I can't spin it fast enough, but if I did spin it fast enough, centrifugal force would go around and throw these vanes out. I think I could pick one out here, kind of hanging up there with the fluid. If I pick it out a little bit, you'll see. They're gonna fly out like that. Once they do that, I'm going from the small chamber, I'm running around, I'm pressurizing it to a smaller chamber, and then that's gonna develop the pressure. Now when it comes to the power steering pumps, a couple of tricks. When you're pulling a power steering pump pulley, it's super important that you use the right tool. Throw away the pry bars, throw away all the different methods you had, because you're gonna damage the pump. How do you do it? Well, simply go to rockauto.com, and that's where I got this one. You have to have a puller set. You can see it right here. Pretty simple to use. Follow the instructions. I'm just gonna go across here. I'm actually gonna lock that in there. When I lock that in there, I'm gonna put a little pressure and hold this. I'm gonna pull that pulley actually off the pump. Now be careful, it's super hard. You're gonna have to put a lot of effort into that. These are press fit. Now if you want to put it back on, just reverse the procedure. You're gonna have to pull the tool out, use a little adapter in here, and make sure you use the bearing, and then just put it on there and push it on. Make sure it's flush so your belt alignment's good. Make sure you check your belt alignment after you put your pulley on your power steering pump. If you want to do a couple of pressure checks, just get your pressure gauge, go in series with the actual pressure line. You need a good high pressure gauge. Then you're going to turn the wheel to the right or to the left. That's going to give you that full pressure. Then the pump should bleed by. So you can see what's going on if it's actually working properly. Now think about this for a minute. If you get a power steering failure, whether it's a rack and pinion or a gearbox, you've got metal floating through that whole system. So please, anytime you replace a power steering pump, put an inline filter right in there. This will catch all the debris that's going in there, and it'll help your pump last a long time, and you're not going to do damage to that new pump with all that metal floating around in the system. And just as important is make sure you use the right fluid. One size does not fit all. There's fluids for all the different manufacturers. There's different fluids for each system. I know we used to just take that old Mercron, put it in there, and we were good to go. Not anymore. The seals, the compatibility, you need the right fluid. You need a effectual filter in there as well. Now there's some more tech tips, and basically flushing the system is super important. So Dave's going to show us how.
Well, John, I was going to flush this system like you wanted me to, but I found out on the Dodge it's actually an electric system, not hydraulic. So I grabbed a model here so we can see how to do that. Now, if you're a professional shop, you've got one of these. It's a flushing system for your power steering. More likely, if you're at home, you've got one of these for $3.98. You got a nice bucket. You're going to want to put that under the car, right under your power steering pump, and you're going to begin the process of flushing it. To do that, first of all, you want to disconnect the return line. Make sure you're not disconnecting the pressure line. Check your service manual to make sure you've got the right line. And once you've got that line off, you want to start the vehicle. Have a buddy do that while you are back here at the power steering pump. You're going to pour the fluid in. You remove the cap off the top, pour the fluid in, and it's going to drain out into the bucket. When it starts draining clear, you know your system is flushed and you are ready to go. But you're not quite finished yet, because you want to make sure that you bleed the system just like you would with the brakes. Make sure you get all the air out of your power steering system. In the old days, you do that by running the car and turning the steering to the left and to the right. You do that a number of times until all the bubbles come out of the system. Well, these days, it's a little more complicated, and you want to grab one of these vacuum pumps, and it would have an adapter that goes at the top of your power steering pump, and you just actuate this until all the air is out of the system, and you are good to go. And oh, by the way, check your service manual to make sure you have the right fluid for your vehicle. When we return to Tech Garage presented by rockauto.com, we're still talking fluids, this time engine oil. Don't miss it.
Well, I hope you're enjoying this episode of Tech Garage, but what you might not know, we have a sister show called Motorhead Garage. You could have seen me on there years past. I'm missing it, but Dave, what a phenomenal show that is as well.
Well, John comes back and guest hosts every once in a while. But at Motorhead Garage, we do what a lot of other folks don't do. They're building cars and everything. We're showing you the coolest products for your car, for your truck, anything that goes, we have it at Motorhead Garage.
Man, I got my DVR set. I'm watching it every Sunday morning. Join me and watch Motorhead Garage. Dave does a phenomenal job. What a great informational show with some great products.
Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, is brought to you by Magic Creeper, the most versatile creeper ever. NH Oil Undercoating, the official oil-based rust prevention system. And by RockAuto.com, all the parts your car will ever need.
Boy, what would an engine be without any motor oil? A big molten mess of metal, that's what it would be. So this segment's all about motor oil. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com, and this is the Master Technician Tech Tip. What is motor oil? Why do we have it, and what does it do? Well, a couple of things. First of all, it cleans the engine. It also cools the engine, but most important, it lubricates the engine. And you can see our engine right here is functioning. Man, everything, the connecting rod bearings, the main bearings, all the way up through oil galleries. We're gonna do all the different ports, the camshafts, the lobes, the lifters are all dependent on motor oil. Without it, boy, we are in trouble. So let's take a look at some motor oil. First of all, I said it lubricates. All those parts have to go and they can't rub together. I got two steel plates here, and when I rub it together, oh, you can hear that. So I'll take a little motor oil and I'll put it on there. It actually creates a little layer. Metal's not gonna rub together. The oil is gonna create that barrier. And when it creates that barrier, you can see, the noise is gone. So I'm running on that oil. Now talk a little bit about oil. There's API ratings and there's viscosity. Let's do viscosity first. Viscosity, think about thickness of fluid. If I took some fluid and I basically flicked it over there on the wall, if it had a low viscosity, it would run down the wall really fast. If it had a high viscosity, it would take a little longer to get down that wall. Actually, I have some 0-20 weight over here. This is the 0W20. And over here, I actually have the 20W50 weight oil in a vial. So if I take this oil and I drop this ball in here, it only makes sense that the thinner oil, the lower viscosity, the ball will run down faster than the other one. Let's see what happens. Pop it in there. Oh yeah, you can see that. The 0-20, it's heading down. Look at that 50 weight oil, barely even moving. That's pretty cool. And you know, if you're old school like Dave and I, man, you just, car starts knocking, what do? You go get some 50 weight and pour it in there. You don't want to do that anymore. These cars are dependent on the right motor oil. So look at your manufacturer specification and add the right motor oil. What happens if you don't? Well, I'll give you some examples right here. Last year, we took off a PTU, a power transfer unit, on a cop car here at Tech Garage. Boy, and when we opened that thing up, it did PTU, P-U'd. Ooh, it was terrible. And actually, I'm not even gonna touch this goopity goop, man. That's a mess. That's what come out of it right there. Think about that, running around in your engine. Nothing's gonna happen. It's not gonna lubricate anything. So what goes on? Well, I told you about those bearings. There's a good bearing, and there's one that was actually wiped out. Look at the sides of those. Totally gone, wiped out. No oil, no bearings, metal through the whole engine. Now the new engines, you have to use the proper motor oil. Why is that? Well, you have different tensioners here. These are all oil-driven tensioners. Tensioners for the belt or the timing chain. Either way, they're gonna go ahead and use oil pressure to get the job done. If they don't, you have a problem. Also, variable valve timing, these tiny little screens right here. All the oil has to pass through there in order to operate the variable valve timing. Can't get through there, wrong weight oil, issues. Now we all know about the LS blocks here with the 5.3, the 6.0s. These are the displacement on demands. Boy, this uses oil pressure down in the lifters, cancels the lifters. What a mess we're running into. Make sure you use the right oil every single time and you're not gonna have a problem. Matter of fact, choosing oil, that can be pretty daunting. It doesn't have to be. Check them out on RockAuto.com.
Well, that's right, John. At RockAuto.com, you folks make it easy to figure out what oil I need for my vehicle. How do you do that?
We have it listed by application, so the specific oil that's recommended by the engine manufacturer and the oil manufacturer is listed under your vehicle. And it's, as John mentioned, it's super important now with gasoline direct injection, with oil running all these little, almost like hydraulic parts to get the, don't just put 10W30 and get the oil that's made for your car. And there's new specifications that are out for like gasoline direct injection. I think it's SP classification now. It's specifically designed to prevent knock and problems that gasoline direct injection engines have.
And this has happened to me, Tom, where I go to change my oil and I have a selection and I can't remember what I put in it before. How does Rock Auto make that easier for me?
You can create an account. They're optional, but if you create an account, you can go back and pull up your old orders and see when you last changed your oil, what brand you use.
And it's not just motor oil too, all kinds of other fluids and maintenance items on rockauto.com as well.
Yeah, all the specialized transmission fluids, power steering fluid, brake fluid, you name it.
Well, when it comes to maintenance items and fluids, rockauto.com has you covered. Also a great place to go for parts at reliably low prices.
Whew, now that the hard work's all done, actually I didn't have to do any of it, but it looks pretty good. The switch is here, and the moment of truth, wow, it's operational. Well, where'd you come from?
Good, Johnny. Came from the Rock Auto desk over there.
Wonderful. Well, Dave, I know you're not used to this riding in the back of police cars, but they do have door locks, and it should work.
Well, it's cool. And I was talking to a few of the crew guys during the break, and they were saying how something like this is super simple. This seems intimidating, but we made a fix like this can be something you can do at home thanks to rockauto.com.
Yeah, and a little luck and some strategy-based diagnosis. You don't even need a DVOM. That was pretty easy.
You got it.
Hey, you know, we're high-tech, but we'll be more high-tech next week, so make sure you join us for more Tech Garage presented by rockauto.com.